Hi, I'm Lizzie Harper of Lizzie Harper Illustration, and today I'm going to do a video in response to some requests I've had from the people who are kind enough to follow me on YouTube. They wanted some information on botany, basic botany. So today I'm going to make a film about variety of leaf shapes, what a leaf is, how they vary and what to look for if you're going to set out to draw a plant. So hopefully this will be helpful. I'm not going to be drawing and painting. I'm probably just going to be talking a lot. The first thing we have to do when we've got a leaf that we want to draw or a plant is figure out if it's a monocot or a eudicot. Monocots are plants like grasses and sedges, but there are lots of others as well, as I'll show you. And the eudicots are much more common. There are over 200,000 species of eudicots, and they're what you would think of like as a typical leaf. But let me show you some examples from my garden. So here we've got some monocot leaves. So this is a leaf from an iris. Irises are monocots, and you can always tell the leaves because they've got, you can see, I'm going to zoom in here, they've got parallel veins. So that's always a dead giveaway. Often the leaves are quite long and thin, but not always, as for example with a tulip. Again, it's got those parallel veins though. Oh, you can barely see them. What if I turn it over? There, that's a little clearer when it catches the light. Parallel veins. But yeah, so that's another monocot. Daffodils, bluebells, even the onion family. So this is a leaf of, no it's not, this is a leaf of chive, and this is a rush. These are monocots as well. So you can see they often look the same, and just, you know, your typical grass, blade as well. They're all monocots. Another way you can tell a monocot from a eudicot is by the seedlings. So this is a seedling of grass, but can you see it's just got one long leaf coming up, and as they grow a little older they get more leaves like that, but they look very different from the seedlings of eudicots, which always come up with two little round leaves. And there's another eudicot seedling, and lots more that I've planted out. And you can see, even though there's variety between them, all these eudicots start with these two little leaves. So that means that they're not grasses and they're not monocots. Here are some illustrations I've done of monocots. This is Poa annua, annual meadowgrass. So again, you can see you've got these longish leaves. Close up on this, which is the brome, hairy brome, you can see those parallel veins in the leaves. And more unusual monocots that you might not necessarily expect to be monocots, palm trees. So this is a date palm. And again, so each of the little leaflets along the big palm fronds, if you look closely, you will see that they've got tiny little parallel veins. Here are lots of eudicot leaves. So this is a leaf made of 3 different leaflets. It's the Aquiledra. And can you see the veins? They're a network rather than parallel to each other. They branch. This very beautiful leaf is a leaf of a cut crane's bill. Oh, it's already flopping. Here you have the 3 leaflets which make up the leaf of the wild strawberry. Again, that network of veins, you see, is very different from the parallel veins of the monocots. This is a little sedum. What we've got here, vinca. We've got the periwinkle. So there's a lot of variety in the leaf shape. Dandelion. This is part of a larger leaflet of a cow parsley. Colour makes no difference really. This one happens to be variegated, have different colours. A daisy leaf, and this is a wind anemone leaf, ivy leaf. There's a lot of variety in the shape, you can see. And here this is a wall bellflower leaf. All eudicots. What we're not going to talk about today is the gymnosperms, like pines and spruces, and we're also not going to talk about the bryophytes, which include all our ferns, our liverworts and our mosses. Those are totally different. The next little bit about what I say is going to be based on this handout, which I'm going to make available as a free download from my website.
So please look for the link in the write-up below this YouTube video. So, what is the basic structure of a leaf? Well, see here, this is a labelled one, and there's some bits that you will know, but if we go through it bit by bit, it'll make a bit more sense. So here we have my illustration of a chestnut leaf, of a sweet chestnut leaf, and this is a daisy leaf, so we can compare. So, the different parts. We've got the different parts. We've got the leaf tip, and then we've got the edge of the leaf, which is called the margin. Can you see these are different shapes? And we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. This central bit here is the main vein or the midrib. The greenish parts of the leaf on either side, they're called the blade, or sometimes they're called the lamina. The veins coming out sideways, sometimes they branch, sometimes they're straighter, those are called lateral veins. Just so far this all makes sense, right? The underside of the leaf is called either the underside of the leaf, go figure, or if you want to be posh, you can call it the abaxial side. The upper side is called the top, or the upper side of the leaf. If you want to be posh and botanical, you can call it the adaxial side of the leaf. The bottom, you've got the leaf base. You know, this is all pretty straightforward. And here's the leaf base. Can you see though, you get variety in leaf bases. I'll touch on that again in a minute. And then you have the stalk of the leaf. Sometimes you have things called, very rarely actually, you occasionally have these little processes down here which are called extrafloral nectaries, which tend to produce sweet substances, which is an absolute treat for ants. And ants are useful because if you have ants, then the ants are going to fight the aphids and stuff and keep your tree healthy. Leaf stalk, and then down at the bottom, I'm referring to the diagram now because I've taken the other leaves off their stems. You have where the leaf attaches to the main stem, and this is called, this is the node from which the leaf springs. And then these little processes that you sometimes have that come out from where the leaf attaches, they're called stipules. And if they're there, they're normally paired. And then down here, you have this little thing, which is really important. It's called an axillary bud. And the reason why it's important is because it will allow you to tell whether or not you have an entire leaf or a compound leaf. So what's the difference between a compound leaf and a simple leaf? Well, a compound leaf is a leaf made up of lots of little leaflets. This is quite a, well, both of these are good examples. So you can see that there are lots of these. This whole thing is actually part of a much larger leaf. Each of these leaflets on this wild strawberry, each of these 3 leaflets, make up the leaf together. With this aquilegia, each of these little parts is a leaflet, and the whole thing altogether is a leaf. But how the heck can you tell? Well, this is where our rather marvellous axillary buds come in. These are simple leaves. This is lemon verbena. I wish you could smell it. It's lush. But can you see, this can be tricky, if you pull back, yeah you can, if you pull back the leaf, just here in the junction, there's a little bud. That's the axillary bud I was talking about. And here it is again on this side, yeah? There. And basically, at the base of any complete leaf, you will find an axillary bud. With a simple leaf, there it is, easy peasy. With a compound leaf made of different leaflets, you need to look to see what you can find. So this is the everlasting sweet pea, which you've probably seen me draw over and over. Here I am. Look, I'm looking at the base of each of these to see if there's that axillary bud. There really isn't. There's nothing there. So these 2 must be leaflets. So if I follow the stem all the way down, I'll find down at the bottom an axillary bud. Do you see it? Nestling in there. Right above the stalk, where the leaf stalk attaches to the main stem. and again. So that's a way to do it. Think of things like ash trees or even chestnuts, anything like that. You need to work down to where the stem joins the stem of the leaf joins the main stem, and look for your auxiliary bud. If your auxiliary bud is there, then you know that what's coming up from there is an entire leaf. Examples of compound leaves: the sweet peas, all the vetches, and like I say, all the umbellifers, like the cow parsleys, they've all got compound leaves. Things like the wild strawberry, compound leaves. The aquilegia, which I showed you. Here again, this is an illustration of one of the cow parsleys, which I was talking about. And other things too, like this agrimony. And you can see the agrimony leaflets all the way down. Where they join there, there's a tiny bud at the top of that stem. It's a compound leaf. Same again. Leaflets, 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 down there, at the very junction with the main stem. It's a compound leaf. There's a pattern here, isn't there? But what about this? This one, were you to look at the base of every single one of these stem leaves, you would have one of those buds. So these are simple leaves, not compound leaves. Inevitably, compound leaves come in different shapes, and there are different terms for them. Some are pretty straightforward. Palmate, like the shape of your hand with fingers outspread. This is a palmate compound leaf. It's a horse chestnut. It's a very young one. So you can see each leaflet comes out from its main axis like fingers of a hand. A palmate compound leaf. You can also have what are known as pinnate compound leaves. Let me zoom out. So this is a rose leaf. These processes down at the bottom are the stipules, which I mentioned earlier, which I'll talk about a bit later. So each of these is a leaflet, and each leaflet comes off this central axis, and these compound leaves are described as pinnate. But within a pinnate compound leaf, like this Welsh poppy, you can have divisions. So this bit here is a leaflet, one leaflet of a compound leaf. So this is an entire leaf from that red cow parsley I was telling you about. And this one is one compound leaf. Look, it goes all the way down there. The stalk is all the way down here. And were we to look where it attached to the plant there, you would have found an axial bud, right? But can you see how divided this is? And this is also a pinnate compound leaf, but it gets more exciting because each of these leaflets is subdivided as well. So compound leaves come in different shapes with different terms applied to them. We've talked a little bit about veins already when we were discussing the parallel veins of the monocot leaves, yeah, that run parallel to each other. But another way of telling leaves apart, especially if they're eudicots, is by looking at the pattern. And this really will help your illustrations, right? If you get the veins right, that's really, really massively helpful. And they're in different patterns. So this lemon verbena, you see they kind of climb up, the laterals, they climb up and go sideways. And those are known as pinnate for whatever reason. They just go up one side and then the other side. And then you'll have others which are more like the palm of your hand, like outstretched fingers. And these are called palmate. So it's a palmate pattern of veins covering the blade of the leaf. Again, here's some more pinnate ones. Going up and going up. You do also occasionally have something called tessellate, which I don't have. Pondweeds have tessellate veins. But it's just more than worrying about the terminology. Just think about what pattern the veins make on the leaf that you're looking at when you want to draw it. Right. Ha! Now we're on to the names of leaf shapes. Now this is hilarious. So almost every botanist will use different words to describe the shape of a leaf. It varies depending on what country you're in, depending on what decade you were taught botany, probably depending on whether or not there's moisture in the air. I don't know. But there are a lot of terms that are pretty consistent throughout botany, but there are a lot that are slightly variable. However, it's very useful to have some idea of the different terms that get used, because it helps you find your way around guidebooks and identification guides if you're trying to identify a plant that you're drawing. So don't despair. A lot of them are literally just the Latin name for an English thing. One way we can break down looking at leaf shape is by figuring out where the widest part of the leaf is. Is it above the middle, in the middle, or below the middle? Examples from above the middle. This is an aster leaf, like a daisy leaf. See, it's wider above the middle of the leaf. A very, very broken dandelion leaf. Be easier if I zoom in on it. Widest above the middle of the leaf, yeah? Widest in the middle, you can have things like an ivy leaf. Or perhaps this, it's another daisy leaf actually, it's a marguerite leaf. It's widest almost bang in the middle. And then some leaves are widest below the middle, such as the lemon verbena we were looking at earlier. And various other leaves are like that as well. So, I'm just going to race through some of the variety of leaf shape. First looking at some of the specimens on my table, and then looking at some of my illustrations. You really don't have to feel that you have to learn these terms. Like I say, it's literally just a way of helping you through some of the botany guidebooks that you might encounter. Let's start super easy. Round leaves are known as orbicular. This is a leaf of lady's mantle. And this one, the cut leaf crone's-bill that I showed you earlier, that again, the stalk comes up in the middle, it's orbicular, it's round. It's got all sorts of divisions and stuff, but we don't need to worry about that quite yet. So orbicular means round. Lots of leaves are oval in shape. This one is oval, although sometimes it would be referred to as elliptical. This one, which is wider at the bottom, is also kind of an oval shape, but it would probably be referred to in the textbooks as ovate. Again, this one is also kind of oval. So again, you could call it ovate, or the botany books might call it obovate, or maybe oblanceolate. Can you tell I'm actually reading from the guide at this point in time, right? Then you have other ones that are a little bit easier. Heart-shaped leaves. Oh, that's so easy. Those are cordate. The leaves on this sea bindweed that I painted are kidney-shaped. In Latin terminology, you'd call that reniform. Pennywort leaves, they're round, so do you remember they're going to fall into the same named category as the lady's mantle and the cut crone's-bill, orbicular. The leaves of maples and of this London plane are known as palmate because they resemble an outstretched hand. Other palmate leaves would include the Japanese windflower I showed you earlier, and also the ivy. Now, ivy's super cool. So the young ivy leaves look like this. They have 3 lobes, 1, 2, 3, and they're described as being palmate. And the veins that we were talking about earlier are also palmate, yeah, going out like the fingers of an outstretched hand. That is a young ivy leaf. When the ivy leaves are mature, totally different shape. Look at that. That's actually from the same plant. And again, there's pinnate veins, which we talked about earlier. So this would be an oval, or possibly a cordate if it went in at the bottom a little more. They're meant to be heart-shaped, mature ivy leaves. Hence me using the term cordate. But yeah, same plant. And that goes to show how important it is when you're doing botanical illustration to take in the whole plant rather than just assume that all the leaves on the entire plant are exactly the same. With leaf shape, it's worth revisiting that term pinnate. Do you remember that we talked about a little earlier with compound leaves? So here's this cow parsley again. So each of these, the whole compound leaf is pinnate, but each of these is also pinnate. Pinnate is a term which means feather-like. It's from the Latin for feather, I believe. And a pinnate leaf will often look fern-like, like sort of frondy and feathery. So an example is the cow parsley, or this little one is feverfew. It's in the daisy family. And again, can you see? It's pinnate. It's divided and goes across the main axis. This is a very feathery number. This is a yarrow leaf. And again, look, It's pinnate, it's divided and divided, and that's what makes it look feathery. This, which is the leaf of the scabious, this whole thing is a leaf, so your axial bud would be down there. But this is also pinnate because it's so deeply divided. And our lovely cranesbill leaf, that I'm so fond of, that is also a pinnate leaf because of the divisions that make it look feathery. As is the Welsh poppy. Pinnate, worth hanging on to. Realistically, all it means is try really hard to remember to see whether or not there are divisions within your leaves when you're drawing them. And draw them. Draw what you see, not what you think is there. Some leaves are distinctly shaped like this. This is the duck potato that I drew. And that shape is called sagittate. There you go. Do you want an easy one to finish with? So this one is a toadflax. It's a bastard toadflax. Sorry for swearing. And its leaves are quite straightforward. They're almost just straight. They're almost linear. They're not quite linear. If you wanted a pure linear leaf, this is like the rosemary, that literally its leaves are just completely straight, right? Not a lot going on there. These leaves are called linear because they're like lines. And the leaves of the bastard toadflax are, they might be described as linear or they might be described as obvolinear if they're a little fatter in the middle. Okay, we're done with leaf shape. We're now going to move on to leaf margins. But before we do not fear, because this handout that I was referring to, which also covers tips and bases of plants, of leaves, and also the margins, that's another one that you'll be able to download for free from my website. The link will be in the write-up below. Margins refers to the edge of the leaf. So we've talked about the overall shape of the leaf, but what about the edges? They vary a lot. And again, they're going to be botanical terms to cover all of these. So this ivy leaf, it's got a completely smooth edge. There's not a lot going on. So that's known as an entire margin. Sometimes you'll have kind of wobbly edges. I haven't got one here, but if you had an oak leaf, that would be an example of a wobbly edged one, which is called lobed or undulate. You'd probably refer to the margins of these Aquilegia leaflets as lobed, I should think. Serrate. Serrate means toothed. So a lot of leaves have serrate margins, and sometimes they're doubly serrate, or sometimes you just have to look and see exactly what the shape of the teeth is because it varies a lot. Do the teeth point forwards? Do they point backwards? Do they get smaller? Are they sort of double teeth? Things like that. Sometimes, instead of being called toothed, they might call them dentate, which makes a bit more sense, doesn't it? Other margins to look out for? Spiny margins, like the holly. Guess what those margins are called? Spinos. Makes sense. Oh, actually, I made a mistake with my my verbena leaf. Yeah, you'd probably actually call this crenate. So this kind of sort of almost, yeah, this crenellated effect would be described as crenate. Yeah. And I think here again, this one, sorry, I'm just looking at the leaves that I've got. This one would it be lobed? Sometimes it's open almost to your own personal opinion. But yeah, those are some of the terms used to describe botanically the shape of your margin. Again, it doesn't matter what those terms are, but when you're drawing a leaf, look out for the margins and make sure you record them as accurately as you can. Leaf tips. Again, look out for the tip of your leaf. Some of them have really unexpected tiny spines, like black medic, which is in the clover family, has tiny little spines at the tip of each of its leaves. And you also have the same that goes on with the base of the plant, and that I understand a bit more. I mean, unless you have the spines at the tip. Anyway, but you can have round bases, or this whole thing of this heart-shaped base where it kind of scoops in a bit. Decurrent is interesting. I'll talk about that in a second. Occasionally you'll get this with auriculate, so that's where it kind of clasps. Or truncate when they've got very flat bases. I haven't got any leaves in the garden that do that. But look, to show you the difference between a rounded base, like the mature ivy leaf, versus a cordate base, like the lemon verbena. Can you see? It's kind of heart-shaped at the base. This is my illustration of the wych elm leaf, which basically is quite a good way of showing what we've just been talking about. So the tip of these leaves are very, very similar, depending, no matter what leaf you look at. They have a trailing point. Can you see that? It's really quite pronounced. The leaf finishes, and then it finishes in this long extended tip. That's species specific. You can see it here as well. And then at the base, can you see? They don't line up. So the base of the leaves don't line up. One side, one lobe comes out further on the basal stalk than the other. And that is what they mean when they say that a leaf is decurrent at its base. It means it's not necessarily lined up. I'm out by my pond now, hence the noise. The next thing to consider when looking at your leaf is how it attaches to the stem. So this is another handout which will be available as a free downloadable link from my website. So do look in the write-up below if you're interested. But depending on how the leaf attaches, that also is very specific. For example, one of the things that it can do is it can be a sheathing base. So if we have a look here at these, are they doing it properly? If we have a look at this clover, you can see that the petioles, the base bit, there, that bit, it clasps and holds on, and that base of the leaflet completely encloses the stem, and then the leaflet comes out from there. Leaves can also be decurrent, where they attach to the stem. So can you see? It's not like a stalk. It goes down, partially sheathing the stem. This is a cornflower. It's quite common, decurrent leaves. Look out for them. This plant is the green alkanet. It's one of my favourites. Look at the blue of that flower. And I'm showing you this one because you can see very clearly here, hopefully, each leaf has a stalk. And the stalk, oh look, there's our back, so there's our bud again, showing that that's an entire leaf. The stalk will attach to the leaf. In that case, some people would describe them as petiolate, because some people describe these stalks of the leaf as a petiole. And here's a rose, which has more, well, these are compound leaves, remember? Look, at the base we've got these stipules, which I'll talk to you about in a second. But look, each of these, oh, I can't hold the thing still. Each of these is a little leaflet, and the whole thing is a compound leaf. And we can tell because, whoop, there it is, the bud at the stem. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to show you. So you can see they're on stalks attached to the leaf, aren't they? So again, that means they're petiolate or stalked. So what about finding some examples of leaves which don't have stalks? So this is some euphorbia, and hang on, let's do it this way, this will make it easier. And you can see that the leaf blade, it literally goes straight to the stem. There's no stalk through which the leaf blade attaches. It attaches straight to the stem. Leaves like this are less common than the stalked ones, less common than petiolate ones, and they are called sessile. You can also have perfoliate leaves. I haven't got any plants like that in the garden. I can't find any that I've illustrated, where literally it looks like the stalk comes bang up through the middle of the leaf. There's a very cool British plant European plant called yellowwort, Blackstonia. That's got amazing perfoliate leaves. Some plants will have leaves that clasp the stem, where the base of the margins wrap around the stem, and that's called amplexical or clasping. And we've already talked about sheathing a little bit. Another thing to consider, are you fed up of considering things when you're thinking about what to draw yet? I bet you are. Another thing to consider is the way that the leaves are arranged on the stem. And that varies from plant to plant. The main thing to consider when you're looking at how leaves are arranged on a plant is whether they are alternate, which means going up the plant one, then the other side, one, then the other side. This is knapweed. And you can see one, the other, one, the other. Or are they? Oh, here's another alternate one. This is a Japanese knotweed. That's very clearly alternate leaves, isn't it? Or are they opposite. If they're opposite, like with this olive, they look like they're in pairs, right? One is literally opposite each other. In this illustration I did of the betony, see, opposite leaves. Sometimes, like with the bedstraws, the leaves are arranged in whorls, literally a circle. Hush now, blackbird. A circle of leaves around the stem. With this rosemary, it's different again. So you have leaves which are in pairs, but they rotate up the stem, going at 90 degrees to each other. There is a complicated botanical term for this, if you wish, which is opposite and decussate. But again, it's not even what the words are. It's just looking and trying to figure out where the leaves are and what their relationships to one another is. The terminology is secondary. Something else to consider. Where is the leaf on the plant? If the leaf is up in amongst the flowering structure, like a very small little thing, it can often be referred to as a bract. Or it might be on the top part of the stem, an upper stem leaf. Or it might be lower down, a lower stem leaf. Or it might be at the very bottom of the plant, which is called basal, a basal leaf. What you have to look out for with plants is that the shape of these leaves as they appear on the plant varies enormously sometimes depending on where they are. I'll take you out into the garden to show you what I mean. Sometimes plants are kind to us, like with this lungwort. The shape of the leaves, they're kind of oval and they're variegated. One of the only variegated species you can find in the wild is the same whether you're at the very bottom of the plant or at the very top. A lot of plants do this, but some really don't. That's so annoying. So the only example that I've managed to find is this, which is a scabious plant. Now, some of the leaves are all lobed. If I put it on my black skirt, you'll be able to see the shape clearer. And some leaves on exactly the same plant are entire. However, having talked to you about position on plant, I can't from this clamp figure out exactly what's going on. Here we go, trust my illustrations. So here is an avens, the water avens. The bottom leaves, with their 3 leaflets going down to the base, are a very different shape from the stem leaflets. Agreed? Yes. And same again with the betony. The bottom leaves are heart-shaped, whereas the paired stem leaves are much more kind of linear obvate or kind of elongated ovals. Something else to look out for when you're illustrating leaves and plants is what happens at the base of the plant. So this is a common dandelion, but can you see? It's a circle of leaves. That's known in the botanical books and so on as a basal rosette, and it's incredibly common. The cowslip is another plant which has a basal rosette. See, on the actual flowering stem, there are no leaves at all. All the leaves are clustered in a circle at the base of the plant. This is a slightly clearer example. All the leaves at the base, basal rosette. This is a geum or a geum, I never know how to pronounce it. Again, basal rosette of leaves. The Welsh poppies, basal rosette of leaves, and eventually the flowering stem will come up. I can't even remember if it's got leaves on, I think it has, but certainly the majority of the leaves are down here in a circle at the bottom of the plant. Some examples of basal rosettes on plants I've illustrated. So they include this, the rock cinquefoil. Well, that one isn't. Oh! The shepherd's purse. Betony again. And the water avens. So yes, if you're drawing a plant, don't get caught out by what's happening at the very base of the plant. If it has a basal rosette, you need to make sure you include it in your drawing. The last thing to look out for with your leaves when you're drawing and painting is to see if there have been any weirdo adaptations going on to catch you out. So some of these are quite common, things like stipules and spines and tendrils, and you can find those quite often. They're adapted leaves, but there's something very weird. So spines you will find on plants such as the gorse, and you can see here's a detail of the spine.
Spine is it's an adapted leaf. But don't be tricked, because a thorn, like the thorns on a rose, is not an adapted leaf. That's an adapted stem. Oh, complicated. Another thing leaves will occasionally turn into or adapt into is tendrils. Now, tendrils are these curly whirly little bits that you often see in pea families, which are very good at grabbing onto things, binding around them and climbing up. I've lost my, here we go, here's some tendrils on the go. All the vetch plants have tendrils as well, but they're adapted leaf structures. The last leaf structure I want you guys to look out for when you're drawing is stipules. They're often paired, as with this rose leaf, and they're just like leafy processes right at the base of the petiole of the leaf stem, where it attaches to the main stem of the plant. So yeah, they're found in a lot of roses, and they're found in lots of other leaves actually. Just keep an eye out for them. Don't let them catch you out. So thank you for joining me on that whistle-stop tour of what to look for when you're illustrating leaves. I know it's a lot of information to take on, but do please take advantage of the free handouts which I've put up on my website, and also feel free to download those. They should be downloadable. Yeah, so I'm not a botanist, so I do need to put in the caveat that I hope that most of the information I've presented you with is correct. Apologies if it is not. But yeah, it just goes to, hopefully it'll be helpful to just show you various things you need to think about when you're doing botanical illustration, and things to consider when you're doing a drawing. So, you know, the leaf shape and where it grows on the stem and what the margin looks like and how it attaches to the stem and where it is on the plant. And most important, probably, whether it is a compound leaf or whether it's a simple leaf, what the margins do. All of these things are worth considering. And I'm also going to make available, again, downloadable from my website, I think, a sheet which is, it's a Word document, which gives you a checklist of all these different things that you should think about when you're drawing a plant. Hopefully this has helped and not just freaked you all out. And yeah, and do feel free to like and subscribe. I might do another one of these on flowers, but I'll try to make it slightly less full on. And have a lovely day. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see more of my work, please go to lizzieharper.co.uk, where you can access blogs, see galleries of work that I've completed, and also where you can buy original artwork if you'd like to. Thanks a lot. Bye.